Abhi, thank you so much for coming on to Startup Steroid today. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. We've been in the same sort of ecosystem for some time with Thai and in the startup world, but I finally was able to get you on the phone, so I'm excited. And just as a way of background, I know you've been in the startup ecosystem for at least 3-4 years investing and actively looking at new startups. But you've been working in the startup ecosystems for way longer than that, right? So
Yep.
please share your story with us and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Deval, for bringing me on. I was looking forward to this conversation. So quick, a few words on my background. So I've been a technologist all my life. Started out as an engineer, worked in many different sized companies across different domains and verticals. Uh, so I've done a lot of mobile engineering. I've done a lot of work on cloud, and increasingly I've also happened to increase my focus on the AI, machine learning, and blockchain technologies, which are kind of the latest cutting edge emerging platforms and just totally new paradigms in the technology landscape. So so I've been investing in startups as an angel for about 3 to 4 years. Happy and proud to be part of the Thai Angels Fund and also part of the Thai SoCal community. And what I think, like what I bring to the table is my deep technology background, having worked on building products and services that have been, in the field, been used by the millions of users. So I know what it takes to start from scratch, take some idea to market at scale, and typically that's what kind of drives me to startup land in general, even when I look for great potential ideas, so to speak.
That's fantastic, and that's such an important skill set that a lot of founders either struggle with or are trying to get a better understanding with. So we'll definitely talk more about that. But before we go into scaling businesses, tell me a little bit about how you sort of discovered angel investing and started making investments of your own portfolio.
Sure, Dhaval. So, as I said, I've been a very keen technologist all my life, meaning I've been fascinated by the latest developments that go on in the software world in particular, but in general, like in technology at large. I've seen so much progress being made in general condition of human life that I have been always kept abreast. Like I've always updated my knowledge base from time to time, not just by reading, but by really, diving deep into, everything that fascinates me. And I think, that kind of led to a natural progression where startups being that frontier where, great imagination, great potential meets the real world. Uh, I have been, lucky, and I have always found that founders and the startup ecosystem really takes the society forward. And if you ask me, like what is, what is something that really engages my, intellect and my curiosity, it's really the startup land, right? So I found that, angel investing to be this natural, natural way for me to be part of this startup ecosystem and have some skin in the game. So I, invest in startups which fit my hypothesis, and I'm also very actively involved with the execution side of things, being very closely connected with founders on a almost on a weekly basis or so. So I would say it's all about my curiosity to know more about the startup world. That's what drove me to angel investing.
That's fantastic, and that's usually what gets us excited, right?
Yep.
That's what gets us out of bed every morning. That it's like, what's going to happen next? We want to know.
Exactly.
You mentioned, your sort of your focus and the industries you like to look at. But let's dig into that a little bit more. As far as your
Mhm.
portfolio goes, if you look back and see the companies that you've invested in, what are sort of the common criteria that jump out?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, the common thread, if we are to kind of point out at my investments, has been really the technology playing a differentiating role. So my investments do span across verticals. So I've invested in healthcare, ed tech, security, like pure play consumer kind of products. But
Mhm.
throughout, across, like you've got a horizontal, kind of on a horizontal plane across all these investments, I would say, how the startups and specifically founders, how are they able to think of using technology to differentiate their offering in the market? I think that is one of the factors. And then there are obviously other factors like, like I look at, how well versed the founder is with that area, like somebody in the healthcare, for example, like, if that person has spent a lot of time, healthcare in the healthcare arena, like being a doctor or a physician or a executive at a healthcare company, that gets my attention. These are, I think, a few couple of criteria I would say which attract me.
That's yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the person. If you're focused on healthcare, and if the CEO is a doctor or has some sort of background in the industry, what are the traits of that person, or of the founding team, that are important to you?
Hmm. Yeah, I think this is one of the most important questions in terms of just trying to understand what are the possible avenues where we should be investing our money, right? I do think founders come in various flavors, right? Some are young, some are experienced, they come from a variety of different demographics, and even like geographical kind of origins. One thing I've seen is they are hustlers, meaning they are not afraid of failures. So what I do see is, if we were to take two cases specifically, like if there was person A who has worked in like one job all his or her life, and now they want to do a startup, but I don't see any other like kind of embellishments on their resume which jump out at me and say, this person is a hustler. Okay, he might be holding a good position at a stable job, which is great. But if we compare that with a person B who has tried a variety of different things, obviously we don't we want someone who has progressed in the career. But I don't mind seeing someone who has taken those challenges head on, and shifted industries, or even like taken up challenging roles, like which are above their skill set at that particular point of time. I would go with person B. So
Right.
I mean, having expertise in one area is one thing, but I definitely feel like, because startup success rate is like abysmally low, like less than 10%, right? Like 8 or 9 startups out of 10 do fail, right, in 3 to 5 years. So we want someone who not only believes in the idea but is very persistent in their efforts. And it's kind of hard to judge that just based on someone's resume or LinkedIn profile. But these are some of the things that I have in back of my mind, which I would say are one or two very important traits I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
and you're right that a lot of these traits may not show up on paper, but when you have a conversation, they'll jump right out at you, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk about that process of how you actually analyze a startup, and uh, let's start with the founder. Actually, that since we're talking about that, what's your process as far as engaging with the founder? Meeting them or phone to phone, or what does that process look like for you?
Sure. So typically what happens is, obviously some kind of warm referral is highly recommended, meaning, like founders, if they want to reach out to me and, get my interest, a warm intro is always the best kind of the intro, right? So they know someone, I know the same person, so they just connect via that person. If not, what I do look for is, first of all, see where they are in their startup journey. If they're starting out, like at a very early stage, like it's just an idea in their mind, I do look at such such startups as well. But then I go deeper into the background of the founder. Then I go deeper into, has this founder done similar kind of projects, or has he or she had any prior successes? uh, what makes it really easy for investors, having someone come to you with prior prior experience of building a company, right? So we know that, that founder has gone through the trials and tribulations of, starting from nothing and seeing the company grow, and also like hiring the right people, raising finance, just navigating the, the landmine that startup world is. That is a huge plus, right? That is a huge plus. And that's why, like, all notable VCs even, many of them just blindly say, okay, we'll sign the check if you had a successful exit. So that is always, a big plus. But even if the startup wasn't a success, like, I still feel that if somebody has tried, right, if somebody went full time with their gig, I would say that is a definite plus. I would definitely call them for a face-to-face interview, like Zoom these days. So these are some of the things I will say. I will start out with.
Perfect. And let's continue digging in that. So the person, I think we understand what you look for, but now let's talk about the business. What are some of the things that you like to look at, and are maybe it's a check mark on the list, or maybe you want to dig in a little deeper and try to understand the depth of the strategy, or what are those things in a business that you like to focus on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, I do start out with, just analyzing the vertical the founder has chosen, and why that person has chosen it, right? Oftentimes what I have come across is, founders, they get obsessed with this shiny new object because they read about it somewhere, it's flashing all over, the social media and whatnot. And especially first time founders are gullible to fall for that kind of trap, right? So I do see that whether the startup meets or passes that filter first, that they are not, having that chase the shiny new object syndrome. But beyond that, what I do feel is, if somebody, as I said, comes in with a strong domain expertise, what that means is, that person knows the space inside out. And obviously we can grill them and, like, go in depth when we chat with them. So that becomes a big plus. And if they have traction already, I think that trumps everything. Meaning, if they are starting out doing a startup and they already have a few customers signed up, a few pilot programs going on, or like, if it was a consumer product, they already have, say, thousands of downloads for their app, or whatnot, or like, daily, monthly active visitors to their website, which is in the thousands of numbers. That gets my attention. So these are some of the metrics I do look for. I don't look at profitability much in the very early stages, because they are just starting out, and a lot of money is pouring into the startup. So the balance sheets are always going to be different from, like, a startup that is going to be further down the road, right? So these are some of the things I would say are important.
That's perfect. So what are some of the things that that are sort of second tier items that are important, you'd love to have, but are not necessarily deal breakers. So just to build on that list a little bit more, what are sort of the second tier items?
Uh, yeah, I would say some of the other things that we do look at. Obviously, there's a like we go in depth about analyzing a lot of different metrics, right?
Right.
So some of the things I would say are not deal breakers are just the size of your team or uh, who is on your team. Meaning, I don't want to discount the fact that team is very important, but what I've seen is like if you have founders, like one or two founders, which is the core team, but then they have assembled a group of people who are carrying out the execution. So as long as we believe in the founders, I think the peripheral team is not as important as the founders themselves, right?
Mhm.
So you can have advisors, you can have, say, early engineers or early finance, like interim CFOs, for example. So those are, I think, to me, like support staff in
Mhm.
the early stages. They are very important, but I've seen startups succeed even if they rotate, such roles,
Right.
like people in such roles. As long as they are making strong progress, I won't say that's a deal breaker, because sometimes what happens is it's very hard for startups to hire early on, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, you're competing with the likes of Googles and Facebooks and Amazons, right, for talent. So sometimes if they can score like A-list, like founding engineer, for example, great. But I've come to understand that a lot of these things are getting commoditized in terms of how to build like a mobile app or a website. Like you don't need very special expertise for that, right, these days.
Mhm.
So that is one thing I would say is important, but not a deal breaker.
Right.
And let's see, the other thing is just in terms of like other VCs. I know like there's a lot of this mimetic tendency to just copy. Okay, like ask the founders, okay, who is on your cap table, and
Right.
if we see great people already there, only then I will invest. I tend to avoid that. I tend to go with my original first principles thinking as to why this startup would succeed even without the VC, right?
Right.
So that is another important point I would put there, that I don't always look for notable VCs being on the cap table for me to come in with my
That
money.
that's such a great point, because a lot of founders have asked that without that lead investor, how do I get all the other investors in? So
Yeah,
that's a great point. So now let's say that you've made the investment. The company is, you're sort of in the company now. You mentioned, besides having skin in the game, you also like to work with founders. So tell me about what that process looks like for you, and what kind of follow-ups do you expect from the founder, and when do you initiate contact?
sure. Yeah, that's another important point. I have found that like a monthly update over email is a great cadence to start with. Like irrespective of how the progress is being made, just a bullet point summary of how the company is performing on certain metrics, like where are they hiring, like what kind of customers have they signed up or are in the pipeline, what are the projections for incoming cash flow, any other investors they are talking to. And also I would like to have a frank kind of outreach from the founders if they are needing help, right? And this need not happen at a monthly cadence. Like I as an investor am available 24/7 to them, but at a minimum I would expect them to be proactive about communicating on something they are struggling with, right? uh, Many times what happens is like founders don't, like, I don't know, they are hesitant probably
Yeah.
to be open about some of the struggles they are facing. But what I would like to tell these founders is don't worry about it. Like 100% of the startups have issues of one kind or the other, right? Whether it's like fundraising, that not even able to hire that key employee for an important role, or some co-founder conflicts, whatnot, not able to penetrate into a certain customer base. All these are known issues. first time founders, they get jittery about being open about such issues. So my frank advice is just be open, reach out to your investors. And I'm of the opinion that I'm on the same team as founders. Now obviously we want our returns on investment. Eventually we want to see that, but there's a process to get there, right? And during that, like having this very close camaraderie between the founder and investor, that can be such a crucial symbiotic relationship for the eventual successful outcome, that I feel that trust has to be established in the beginning for that high bandwidth communication to take place.
Absolutely. And you're so right in that one of the people I respect very much has said that, start that monthly email with all the problems that you're having.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
And, once you get that out of the way, then tell me the good news. But
Yep,
the
I agree.
problems are way more important. So
Yep.
really well said. Once the founder has become part of your portfolio, what additional service can they expect from you? Can they expect introductions? Can they expect help with the technical side? All of those things. What beyond just a monthly communication can they get?
Absolutely. And I think that is where I feel that where I as an individual investor, or the groups where I am part of the investment committee, like that, like how I see myself as being a differentiator, right, compared to say other investors. So I don't think of myself as a passive investor. I don't see startup investment in the same investment category as like putting money in the bank and getting interest on it, right? It's
Right.
very different. So here I feel that I am a very active partner, and I am there, like standing together in arms with the founding team, with any problems that they have. So you mentioned about can they expect introductions to my network? Absolutely yes, like 100%. So my network will be fully open, and I will definitely do a scan of where the right intros can be made, whether it's like connecting them with a potential like a VP of engineering or VP of product, or potential customers that I know of, or some of my ex-colleagues who have gone on to become founders themselves, right? So that they can expect. And also I have from time to time rolled up my sleeves and been in the trenches, doing architectural reviews, setting up processes, because that has been my wheelhouse all my career, right? So anything related to kind of evaluating new technology stack, to just giving a good feedback on the initial mocks of a website or mobile app. I've done everything, right? So so what would make me really happy is they reaching out to me and saying, hey Abhi, we are struggling with this, or I would just like to know your 2 words feedback about this. That will make me the happiest. So I'm very, very much involved.
That's great, and that's a lot of times for founders. That's such a hard thing to get, right? The outside perspective, but the outside perspective with someone you trust and someone whose feedback you can completely trust, because they're essentially betting on your success. So a lot of times, the people who within the team are too close to the project, and they may not necessarily be able to see it from that 1,000 foot. So that's such an important service that you as an investor can provide to the founder. So Abhi, this discussion has been fantastic. I think we learned a lot about your thought process, but I'm going to end it with the same question that I ask every investor that comes on. And that is, what is the one action step you would recommend to the founders today? So what is one thing they have to have done before they give you a call or before they send you that first email?
Sure. I would say know your area of operation really well. What I mean by that is you need to have a very strong holistic understanding of what you are doing, right? Because you don't want to be, you have to have a very unique perspective on what you're trying to achieve with your startup, and how that is going to make the world a better place, right? So that's the what. And then I would say the why, right? So many times what happens is, founders have this desire to do a startup, but they don't have a strong why as to why they want to do a startup. Because, as I said, startup is a very hard journey, and there will be times of hardships. And the only thing that will keep them going is, they have a very strong why as to why they are doing this startup. So those are kind of the things at the core, right? And once they understand that, then I'm assuming that they would have worked on the other details, like like what's their TAM, and what's their eventual exit plan, and what's their roadmap for the next 6 to 9 or 12 months. Those things obviously are important, but beyond that, I'm going to go and look at, does this startup understand, why they are operating, and what they are operating on.
That's fantastic. That is such great advice, and knowing your why. And one thing, what do you? This is a question, based on that. But a lot of founders, they may, do, just they might throw out some fancy things just because they think it makes them sound good. But in the back of their mind, their why is to make money. And
Right.
if that's your motivation, I've seen a lot of founders struggle. What's your take on money being the why for
Money.
the founder?
No, honestly speaking, I feel that's a great why, but don't make it your only why, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like, we are operating in a strong capitalistic environment, and I'm a strong capitalist libertarian at heart. So obviously, money has to be made, right? Like, I mean, but in the process, what I do look for is, okay, we are going to make money by making things better in this way, right?
Right.
So that's the broad question that founders need to answer. And once I'm convinced by that, then I'm sold on your vision. Then I'm interested in learning further about the details. And then I'm, I'll happily, give you the money and be part of your operating plan. So I will say money is important, right? And don't be shy about that. Go plan to become the next billionaire. But be convinced about, like, how you are going to get there and why you want to do it, in addition to just making money.
Fantastic. Really well said, Abhi. Thank you so much again for coming on today and sharing your insights. I'm looking forward to working with you and hoping to do some deals together. And let's continue the conversation. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dhaval. Great chatting with you.
Bye.
Bye.